Let's bring in one of my favorite guests of all time, the one and only Bob Harig, joining us, SI writer. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Jay. I'm doing fine, thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Oh man, such an honor and a privilege to have you on. I guess Tiger Woods is one of those guys too, right? As far as getting carte blanche and getting away with some other things that people won't get away with, huh?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's funny. I don't know if he got away with anything, certainly, but, when he had that car crash a few years ago, which was horrific, there wasn't a whole lot that came out about how it happened, right?
Right.
We'd still love to know those answers. I get that all the time. Why don't you ask them? And it's like, well, his response at the beginning was, it's all in the police report, except it wasn't.
Right.
And so what's he, what impetus is there for him to really talk about it? But like, I think a lot of people would really like to know what happened, and that's probably a good example of what you're talking about there. That thing kind of, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say covered up, but they certainly didn't dive into what really went on. And that's probably a pretty good example, happens all the time.
Yep. And I think when in a situation like that, when you look around, you're like, he was the only one hurt. Nobody else was hurt. So it's a lot easier for people to kind of like, all right, let's move on. If he was the only
No
person
question.
that really was
Yep.
affected with this. Big news here in the last couple of days with LIV Golf securing a TV deal there with Fox. And we're wondering, I know there was, talks of like, all right, what's the future here? I know there's a lot of money going into it, but this is a huge deal, Bob. And in February, we're going to see LIV Golf, those 3-round tournaments on Fox.
Yeah, it is. It's important for them. It's if they had it to do over again, I think they would have tried harder. I'm not saying they didn't try hard. Maybe they would have waited. Of course, by not launching, they might not have ever launched. But they needed this at the beginning.
Right.
They've had 3 years of not really getting exposed properly, especially in the U.S. You can watch it. They've had a free app the entire time, but I still maintain that even though they skew younger, most golf audiences do not stream. It's even if their audience does skew younger than the PGA Tour's audience, I'm guessing that the overall number of people that are streaming it is not that big. So they need a good over the air partner like this. And the CW, even though it's in 100 million homes, it's not a sports network. So people aren't watching it and being reminded, oh yeah, LIV Golf is coming on. It was up to affiliates to take it. It wasn't on Fridays. So this will be a lot better for them. Sports people know Fox. They know Fox Sports 1 and 2. They will be promoted during other sports telecasts, and it gives them a better chance to get some eyeballs. And also they're getting money. Mm-hmm. I get this a lot from the LIV people. Like they talk about how great it's been for 3 years to be able to watch for free on an app. And I go, that's great, except it's not realistic. If you think about it, none of us consume sports for free. We either have a cable subscription, mm-hmm. or we're doing some sort of a streaming package. Right. We have a dish, or we're paying separately for streaming. Like, you are not getting it for free. Like, even when people complain about the NFL going to Amazon, they'd rather watch it on Fox or CBS. Well, but in essence, you're really paying for Fox and CBS. You just mm-hmm. don't think about it. You have a cable, right. So LIV has not had that, but that's without that, they've also not had the revenue. They're burning through millions of dollars every week they play. And at some point they need to and want to offset that.
Yeah, and there's a convenience, right? I mean, I think the older we get, we realize that, especially living down here, people want convenience. And if they can't just kind of casually go by it, or, I mean, golf's such a unique sport that you can watch it, whether you're dialed in or it's great background noise. Like, there's just so mm-hmm. many different things. Like, golf is you put it on all day. And I think that's where LIV kind of missed out of, like, you need to be able to get, you want the diehards, you want the young guys that love streamers, but you want people that are just kind of channel surfing. And they're just like, oh, golf's on. Oh, look, I know that guy. Oh, look, there's Bryson. Yeah, let's put it on and we'll keep it on for the rest of the day. You're never going to get anybody going to the CW or going to LIV Golf on the app that are just kind of casually, like, nobody's stumbling on that. And I think that's one of the big things that people miss out when they're talking about that. Do we have any? I know the points are a big thing, right? And does this help that argument at all? I know that's one thing that, the guys are looking, and it's just such a weird dynamic, and it was so black and white. Maybe it never was black and white, but do we get any closer with these guys if they're winning tournaments? They get credit outside the majors, because it's something I know that's still a big drawback for those guys.
Yeah, they don't have official world golf ranking points, and that's a very contentious issue. And the OWGR has people that are part of it that are within the golf ecosystem. It's represented by the 4 majors. It's represented by the PGA Tour, by the DP World Tour. And if you want to make the argument that it's stacked against LIV, well, yeah, it is. Those people, and especially for a long time, have seen no reason to want to give LIV credit. I don't think that's exactly fair. I mean, we could argue about how strong the fields are in LIV, but winning a LIV event and beating the guys that you beat isn't worth 0. It's worth something. It might not be anywhere close to what winning a PGA Tour event is, but it's in there somewhere, and they're getting nothing. And does this bring it any closer? Probably not, because LIV has decided. First of all, they pulled their bid for ranking points. The OWGR in late 2023 actually did come back to them when they denied their bid. They gave them the reasons why. And the biggest reason why is they don't have proper turnover from week to week. And this is very, very in the weeds. But, this week on the PGA Tour, the field at the Amex is different than the field was last week at the Sony Open. Right. And it'll be different next week at the Farmers Tournament at Torrey Pines. There is churn every week. You're getting different levels of players coming in and out. When they play their first signature event at Pebble Beach, which is a smaller field, it's much more top heavy, but there is a way to qualify your way into those tournaments. For LIV, it's the same 54 players every week. There is no week-to-week turnover. And also they now have a very, very small window for actually getting on the tour. They have one spot through their promotions event, and they have one spot that's earned through, it's called the International Series. It's a series of events on the Asian Tour. So, in theory, only 2 new players can come on, and the other players come on through being picked. The team captains can choose a player. Look, in their defense, they view themselves as a league, not a tour. It is teams. And, the Bucks don't just have somebody that's pushed on them who comes through the draft. They pick them. So that's their argument. And I get it. But if you want to be within the ecosystem of golf and have some, be able to earn points for their individual players, you've got to do something. And there are ways they could. First of all, they have the resources to make it happen. Right. They could expand their field to 60 players. They could have weekly qualifying and make those guys a team. If there is ever a deal with the tour, I could see a scenario where every week there would be a different PGA Tour team that competes in a LIV event, and it rotates. So that's 4 different players. And then if you had a qualifier every week, the tour a lot of weeks has a qualifier. 2 or 4 spots are available. If you're good enough, you can qualify your way in. LIV could do the same thing. And if you get in a LIV event, you're making at least $50,000. It's worth it to try.
Right.
So there are some avenues for them to explore. So far, they haven't wanted to. And so the OWGR is like, look, we told you, and you're not even trying. So we have this stalemate. Now, if there ever is a deal, I got to believe some barriers are going to come down and they're going to compromise and try to figure something out. Because John Rahm is a good example. He didn't win a major last year, but he won twice on LIV. He was never outside of the top 10. He was 7th at the British Open. He finished 2nd at the Spanish Open, which is a DP World Tour event. He was 7th in Scotland. These are events outside of LIV, the Dunhill Links. I believe in other words, he's had high finishes, but his finishes on LIV didn't help him at all. And so now he has dropped from being 2, 3, 4 in the world when he went to LIV. He's 26th in the world. Jon Rahm is not the 26th ranked player. You know, Bryson is around 9th or 10th. He's probably in the top 3 or 4.
Right.
You know, but they're not getting any credit for what they do over there. And you know, this is part of the stalemate that we're part of right now. That needs to somehow they need to figure out a way to resolve it.
Do you think there'll ever be a resolution, Bob? Do you think there'll ever be kind of a joining of this so we don't have to have these questions? And it's just weird, man, because it's cool. I always like alternatives in sports. I like that there's it's like I'm a big wrestling fan. I like that there's different companies, right? That you can go player trade here and player trade there. But it's just weird that, like you said, we have these official world golf rankings that we grew up on, right? And now Jon Rahm isn't even in the top 10 when if any tournament you watch him in, you're like, I don't think you're an idiot if you pick him to win. Do you think there'll ever be any resolution? And do you think we're closer now to a resolution than we were when LIV first started?
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be, but I mean, what it looks like is really sort of the big question. I mean, the problem I see with all of this is, you know, I'm all for alternatives too, but in sports in general, you know, monopolies actually work. Like years and years ago, talk to people who watched the USFL back in the day. Okay, they liked the spring football. They liked the idea of another, you know, getting to watch. And obviously, football is king, right? We could probably watch it all year round. The problem with it is that there was a lot of people who rightly said, I want to see Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie, Jim Kelly, Steve Young. I want to see them in the NFL.
Right.
I don't want to see them in this other league. And so by them being in this other league, they weakened the other league. And eventually it dissolved. In the NBA way back, the ABA merged some teams. Even hockey had a rival league. Golf is such, golf is such a niche sport. And we already have tours around the world where, you know, Europe, you know, Rory McIlroy plays both. We need a way that they can all play, that they can go between. I don't know how that works, but to have them be separate is not good. You know, when the Memorial Tournament is being played at Jack Nicklaus's course, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, you know, Jon Rahm, there needs to be a way for them to play there if they want to. I get, though, why they're not allowed to. You know, this has been very divisive. So are we going to have a deal? I think so. I mean, the PIF, the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, which backs LIV Golf, you know, has been looking to get into golf forever. And they're willing to invest $1 billion in the PGA Tour, which, you know, they've already gotten $1.5 billion of investment from a different private equity group. So if they do that, though, I think they're going to want to see some return. And to keep stymieing the league they've propped up, LIV, I think is going to require there to be some barriers to come down. And how we get to that point, though, I have a feeling that is why this is taking so long, because there's probably 50 different opinions as to which way to go and how, and coming to a consensus and working that out is, I guess, I'm gathering is not easy at all.
Yeah, I'm sure people want to come together, but there's 50 people with 50 different suggestions on how. What do you think about the TGL, man? I love to see Tiger out there chopping it up. He's mic'd up. He's having a good time. Love to see this, you know, version of Tiger at this part of his, not just of his career, but of his life. To see him out there busting chops, you know, making bad shots and just kind of laughing it off. A lot different Tiger than you saw growing up, with stone-faced focus on all these things. But, you know, what do you make of TGL and their kind of hope for the future, and also, you know, Tiger's disposition during this whole thing?
Yeah, I went to the first two. The building is spectacular. The technology is really impressive. I mean, anybody who's hit into a golf simulator and thinks of it as that is like, what's the big deal? No, this thing is, you know, 5 stories high. It's immense. You know, and they're hitting off real grass and real sand, you know, when they're hitting into that screen. They've got a lot of big money behind it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's harmless. It's a TV show one night a week for a couple of months. It doesn't impact regular golf. In fact, they've worked really hard with these guys to incorporate them into TGL without it impacting their regular tour schedule. In other words, if a guy wanted to be playing this week at the Amex, he wouldn't have been scheduled to play on Tuesday night in West Palm Beach. It'll be a little bit easier when the tour comes to Florida because their events will be on Monday night, so they can get down to West Palm. So I don't see a problem with it. I think there's an audience for this. I think that it's possible that maybe this gets people to want to say, they saw the other night, they saw a guy like Sahith Theegala. He was pretty into it. Now maybe they'll want to go watch him when he plays his next real tournament. Maybe they'll tune in and see, hey, yeah, that's the guy I saw in the simulator. And there he was having a good time. Now he's being serious. So, and it is good. I mean, obviously this keeps Tiger in the limelight. I was very curious from the very geeky, totally into golf standpoint with Tiger. I was looking at his numbers. The tech shows you exactly how far he was carrying it. It's maybe not quite as good on the short shots. I mean, Tiger is not hitting a 60-yard wedge shot 30 yards long. I think there's something there that isn't quite right yet that they've got to figure out. It's hard to get the feel, but with the long clubs, I got a chance to see how far Tiger was hitting it. And, that gives you an indication as to how healthy he is. So I think in a bigger picture, it's interesting to see how far they hit it. What kind of club head speed they have. If you're into those technical things in golf, I think it can capture that audience. And then there's, the kids who like video games or who are into this sort of thing. And it's only 2 hours. Golf is a long commit, 4.5 to 5 hours,
right.
A lot of downtime between shots. One thing that these guys are doing that real golf needs to probably try to implement is a shot clock. It's interesting when if things ticking down and all of a sudden these guys aren't quite ready and they have to hurry up and, the overall game could really use something like that because the rules aren't enforced.
Yeah. Well, you get Brian Harmon and his waggles. He might have to cut it down to 4 instead of 14.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and a lot of it though is he could waggle as much as he wants if he takes care of all the other stuff before getting to that point. If you get up to the ball right away. But there's all kinds of times when these guys take way longer than they need to. They're not ready to play, and I think it hurts the product. A 5-hour round of golf is actually it's usually 5.5 when they play threesomes on tour. There's just log jams out there and a lot of waiting. So we'll see if any of these things kind of maybe filter into the real game.
What do you think about Tiger as far as does he have anything scheduled on the tour this year? How much do we expect to see him this year?
Well, he was not likely. First of all, he's playing in TGL again on January 27th. And that'll be the last time he does that until the Genesis Invitational, which is his tournament, which yesterday they just announced is going to be moved. It's in LA, and because of what's going on in LA with all the horrific fires and everything, they've made the determination, and rightly so, that they really can't play there. The golf course isn't affected, but the surrounding area is really bad, and they don't want to take from resources, so they're going to move it. They haven't said where, and since it's his tournament, that's always where we expect him to come back and play. So I think that will give us an indication. I saw him last month at the PNC in Orlando when he was playing with his son. Now, look, that's a fun kind of hit and giggle event, but he walked for 3 days.
Yeah.
The Pro-Am and then the 2 rounds of the tournament. He had a card available that you're allowed to use it there, didn't use it. It's the best I've seen him walk since the car crash. I mean, that part looked good. He had a back surgery in September, like his 6th. And my sense is that's now giving him some relief. His back was bothering him a lot last year, and he didn't let on. This is typical Tiger. He doesn't talk about it. Like, you could tell something was up, and he wouldn't really delve into the details. But clearly, he was not feeling good that way. So he might have a window here where the walking is pretty good, the back feels okay. And, hopefully after the Genesis, wherever it's played, he commits to a tournament in Florida like the Players Championship, which is about a month before the Masters, because I don't think this playing just the majors, it's just not conducive to success.
Right.
You're not competing enough, and then you're trying to beat Scotty Scheffler, who's been playing every week or every other week, or Xander. These guys. I mean, as great as Tiger is, he still is. By the way, if you put Tiger over a golf ball, he can still hit at 300 and some yards. His iron play is world-class elite. His short game can be good if he's working at it and he gets competitive. But there's nothing to sort of replicate the being inside the ropes and the real thing. You just can't replicate that. You can't replicate adrenaline, crowds, and what your opponents are doing. And so I just think he needs to play a little bit more and play a little bit outside of the majors. I mean, you show up at Augusta National. It's a hard golf course when especially with tough conditions. It'll go down as one of the most underrated rounds of his career. But last year on the Friday, the Masters, it was howling out there. It was chilly. The wind was tough. Guys were shooting a million. Tiger shot 72, even par, to make the cut by 5. He easily made the cut on days that a lot of guys were missing. And, it's 24th straight time he made the cut at the Masters, which is a record. But then the next day, something went wrong. He shot 82. His back gave out. You could tell he was coming out of shots. But that Friday round was sort of epitomized just how good he still is. Just hasn't been able to stay healthy or be able to get through a full tournament. And I think a lot of that has to do with he's just not sharp. And so we'll see if he can get sharp.
That's the thing, is you get sharp by playing a lot of tournaments, but then your body might not allow you to do so.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for Tiger. He's not going to be able to play consecutive weeks. He's not going to be able to play 15 times. But playing 5 times isn't going to work. He needs to play 8 or 10, and how do you balance that? Like he clearly, after he plays an event, there's kind of he needs to decompress for a few days. He needs to get off his feet. Well, while other guys are going to the next tournament working on their game, he probably can't for a few days, and then he needs to amp up again. So it's a tough balance in there. And next year he's going to turn 50. He's hinted at playing some Champions Tour golf where he'd have a cart. And I actually think that could be good for his major championship golf because he could compete while not having the wear and tear of walking. And even senior golf, it's competition. It's inside the ropes. You're still sweating out shots, and that might allow him to get a little bit more competitive.
And he wants a little revenge on Longer because of what happened at the PNC, right?
That's right.
It's become a tradition, Bob. Now I go home every year, and me and my dad and my whole family, we watch it because it's so intriguing with the father and the son, the mother and the son. We see Annika out there. It's like, and what a great tournament. Like Charlie hits the hole in one, and the way they went to the playoff, like they couldn't have asked for anything better this year at the PNC.
No, it's been pretty good. Tiger and Charlie have given that tournament a boost, which has created some awareness for it. It's been kind of a sleepy event in December. But, back in the day, Jack Nicklaus used to play with his sons. Arnold Palmer played with his grandson. I mean, Lee Trevino's played in like every one. He's 85 now. They play off different tees to try to make it, equitable. It's a pretty nice event, and Tiger gave it a pretty nice ratings boost too. It did really, really well for December golf up against the NFL.
You got that right. Drive, The Lasting Legacy of Tiger Woods, and the Tiger versus Phil book, which I've read cover to cover twice. And I've given it to my dad. My dad loves it too. The one and only Bob Harig, golf writer for Sports Illustrated and a member of Team Tampa Bay. Thanks for contributing to the top sports stars of Tampa Bay. That was a big help there as well, my friend.
Got my son to help out with that. We debated, and I deferred to him. But no, that was fun. That was fun. Thank you.
I always appreciate you contributing. You are the best. If I ever have a question about golf, you are the man. We'll talk to you again soon. And if I don't talk to you before then, I'll see you at the Valspar in a couple months, brother.
That sounds great. Appreciate it, Jay. Have a good weekend.
You too, buddy. Man.